Good evening. TVI tonight is in Handsworth, Birmingham, in St Andrew's Church Hall. We're here because of the explosion that's taken place in this area this week, an explosion that begs many questions. Who or what lit the fuse? How can the shocked community be rebuilt? We'll be putting those questions to the people to whom they matter most, the people who live here. We begin in their streets, in the streets of Handsworth, outside the sub-post office, where on Monday nights 2 people lost their lives. The reporter is John Withington.
Wednesday night, at what was the heart of the Handsworth riot. Now the streets are quiet, but for the third night running, there's a substantial, though less conspicuous, police presence to try to prevent any repetition of the events that shocked the nation. So what was the spark that caused £2 million worth of damage and cost 2 people their lives? Some local residents believe one factor was their demand for the police to take action against what they claim is open drugs trafficking in the area.
You can buy cocaine, heroin, cannabis, whatever you name it, you can buy it quite freely on the streets. It's offered to you. At one time in the summer months, there was actually a list pinned on the wall outside the pub with how much the drugs were costing. You can go up, you can buy them, they're freely available.
This street corner is said to be the centre of the local drugs trade. It's certainly where the riot started, as firemen tackling a mysterious blaze in this bingo hall were stoned and driven back by gangs of youths.
I must say to you, on Rookery Road at about 4:45, my manager, he in fact phoned the police that there are 40-50 youths outside breaking my shop. Will you please come? They didn't turn up, but they came after about half an hour when everything was finished.
One of the ironies is that since the riots of 1981, Handsworth has been held up as a showpiece of community policing. But now there are complaints from parts of the community that the police have been too soft.
The softly approach by the police is just not carrying out what we want, because it's not containing the problem. Nothing's happened in 4 years. If drug abuse is now evident, what will it be next? We're getting the riots. What is there beyond that, one says?
To combat Handsworth's social problems, £20 million has been spent in the last 6 years to brighten up the area. Job creation schemes like this, tidying up the ground around the church, give a little hope for a few. But overall, an alarming 50% of young people are out of work. And the immediate effect of the riots is likely to be to increase unemployment. How serious is the damage to your shop?
Completely finished with the building. Everything is being destroyed.
What's your feeling?
Nothing can done. Feeling, expel the future, whatever is been done. You know, work hard for this shop and establish the business and got no future now. That's all I can say.
The full story behind this week's appalling pictures from Handsworth will only come out through detailed official inquiry and through the courts. But meanwhile, the people who live in Handsworth have got to get on with their lives. And here in St Andrew's Hall, we're going to be talking about that with a cross-section of Handsworth's mixed-race community, including some of those who, in one way or another, are responsible for the running of the community. Could we start, when we speak of rebuilding, with the fundamental basis of law and order? The policy of community policing, closer relationship between police and the rest of the community, has been tried for years in this area. Now, does it have to be rethought, either because it hasn't gone far enough, or because it's gone too far, because it's too soft, too tough? Could we start in the front row, Mr. Bailey?
Well, the police policy is one of an individual. It depends on who is in charge. And if black people have a complaint and the superintendent is not prepared to listen and he gives his constables the okay to harass people, then naturally it must get worse. But if he will listen and pay attention to what the people in the community are complaining about and do something about it, that is when we have harmony.
Do you think that community policing is something that works at all, in your view?
Oh, well, I don't know how you would define community policing. I mean, a policeman on the road has got to be humane at all times, and he's got to know how to approach people. And so it doesn't matter if there is a community policing program and you have individual police officer who is a bit of a bully and going around harassing people. I mean, he's not doing the job how he should be doing it at the time, so that you can't call that community policing.
Could I hear another view from over here?
Well, as far as the community policing in the area was concerned, it had worked in the past, and I think to a certain extent it did. But police also are human beings. They are trying to do their job. They have been heavy at times, but the problems also lie with the community as well.
My question is to Mr. Sharp. Mr. Sharp, through the press, it's widely reported that you have made a deal with this man concerned that if he withdraws his troops back to the barracks, there'll be peace in Handsworth. How far is correct? I want your honest answer.
That's what I asked.
Can I put this to you, Mr. Sharp?
Yes, of course. Let's make it quite clear. The police have done no deal with anyone. Police don't make deals with rioters or with criminals. Let's make that quite clear. What happened yesterday was just in accord with a normal policing policy in Handsworth. With noisy parties, with disputes of all natures, we've always called on members within the community who've got influence that can solve these problems peacefully and quickly. And that's what we did yesterday. There was someone came forward who claimed influence with the Rastafarian group, who we thought had influence with the Rastafarian group. He spoke to them in the vicinity of the Villa Cross pub, and the crowd dispersed. Let's make it quite clear there was no deal, and it was the police who were policing Handsworth last night.
The deal has been dealt. It was spelled out on the television this morning by the chief superintendent of the C division that they have struck a deal within Rastafarian that if they withdraw their people from the street, if they withdraw their troops from the street, there will be peace. That means to say that the community has been held at ransom. That means to say tomorrow some other form of organization will come up to you and say, sir, we are going to have this done, and if you don't do it, we will put the whole streets on fire. You are held at ransom, and that is not a kind of deal which will be accepted by the community, and we reject it, and that should never have been done.
I want to hear I think a very serious point has been made to Mr. Sharp. I want Mr. Sharp to address himself to the question, to the point that's just been made.
Yes, indeed.
The Deputy Chief Constable.
First of all, let me repeat again, the police have made no deal with anyone, and there has been no withdrawal of any police from the streets of Handsworth. In fact, last night, there were more police on the streets of Handsworth than there were on Monday night when the fires were burning. In excess of 1,000 policemen were in Handsworth last night. And that level of policing will continue until such time as normality is restored. Now, let me address the particular point. Let's get it straight that no matter how many policemen you have in an area for a particular problem, the level of policing that you will actually see on the streets depends on the numbers of people who are on the streets, the numbers of incidents that are coming in, and the attitudes of the people who are on the streets. And just because you are not seeing policemen in an area, it's not because they're not there, it's because it's a low profile.
I would like to hear a comment from the black community. Perhaps I could hear from Beanie Brown, who hasn't spoken yet.
You know, most of the people who are talking here, the Haitian youths yesterday walked out there with African youths and lay a wreath in respect for the dead. I can say I was out there when the riot on the night. And a lot of people like Mara and Ruka, who was not out on the street in the action when it was going down, did not see African youths, Asian youths, and white youths throwing petrol bombs. I saw that. And I spoke to the fire officer and want to diffuse this thing about criminal and murder. And I can prove this. The fire officer, we spoke to him, and he said he was going to withdraw his men, and he had a brick in his hand, and he said, this is what one of my men got. And he said, he told the people to come out the shops, right? And I've told Jeff Rooker this yesterday, that I went along the shop, and Asian people swore at me and said they were going to protect their premises, right? And they weren't coming out. I've also told the Asian people who are standing out in front of the shops that if a group of people come to attack the shop, give way and save your lives. And this crap that is going down from Asian leaders in these communities, especially shopkeepers association, that's trying to divide the community, are doing the work to divide the community. And it's not going to help where people dividing the community, I can bring our members who was out there talking to those shopkeepers, and I can go to those shops. And if anybody wants to challenge me on that, I will prove it, and I'll take them on the street and show them the shops, and I'll show them the shops that the other members go to. And
Right.
I want to hear this thing about murder stuff.
I want the gentleman who hasn't spoken has got... the gentleman down there with his hand up in the suit, please. I want to hear a point from this gentleman, please.
I think you started the dialogue and discussion that we should think of rebuilding Handsworth. I think the way things are going, we are destructing it, not rebuilding it. What I want to say, we should all work together. We shouldn't divide the community. We should heal the wounds. Thank you. We should work together, not we should work in separation. So let people not divide us. Let's all get together. Thank you.
Do you think the people who are making this criticism of the police, I would like to find out whether you want to see harder police methods than have been used. Do you want the police to be tougher? And do you feel that...
We want the correct police. I seen some scene last night and night before. I saw a young black kid punched by police, kicked, and put down on the footpath. It was a young black kid, only about 19-year-old. He was doing nothing. He was going, minding his own business because there was some problem further down the bottom. And instead of looking at those people who were making troublemakers, and they picked up on this young black kid and just thumped him left, right, and center and put him in the van.
There's a gentleman just two rows behind you. There's a gentleman.
I represent the Lozells Road Traders Association, and we are the ones that have lost all the shops and all our livelihood since Monday evening. I have personally lost a shop that has been burnt out. Yesterday we had a meeting, and 25 members of the Lozells Road Traders Association, Mr. Asian, told me categorically as chairman that there is no animosity in Lozells and Handsworth amongst Afro-Caribbean and Asian. None whatsoever.
Now, we are against the people who are committing these crimes. So these people must be dealt with. And if the police, in the community policing, comes in with a hard hand on the criminals, then we will not be part of that society. We will participate.
Yes,
we will play our part. We will play our part within the community policing. We have played our part in the last.
Thank you.
We will continue playing our part in the community policing.
Can we differentiate between these so-called criminals and the unemployed youth that are aged 16, 15, that know that they've got no future to look towards and see?
That doesn't mean that
they
should pick up the bricks and burn people to death. That doesn't mean that they should pick up the petrol bombs and burn people's properties.
I've been ashamed on behalf of them. I've been ashamed.
Liz has made her point.
Margaret Thatcher, that these children died, these people died.
That may be Asians, that may be West Indian, that may be whites. That may be anybody.
I'll bring you in a moment.
Hey, listen to me, man.
Please sit down. Please sit down.
Sit down, man. You listen to me because you want to blame black people for the riot and the fire, right?
I don't want to blame anybody. I want to give people a chance to speak.
Let me tell you where that fire come from, right? Because me talk to the guys out there on the street at the same night, and me ask them how that happened. And I go and tell you how it happened. It happened because of the greed of a shopkeeper. The shopkeeper, after he give the guys some money, he give them alcohol and cigarette. And then when them take the things out the shop, the Indian shopkeeper said to them, please burn my shop. Or else I'm not getting any insurance.
Thank you. I want to hear from Mr. Williams. What I want to ask Mr. Williams is, we've heard a lot of criticism from the floor of the police, from members of the Asian community, criticism that not enough was done, that things were allowed to happen that should have been prevented. In other words, they weren't tough enough or efficient enough. On the other hand, we've also heard criticism from the black community, which has to do with harassment and insensitivity. How do you balance those out?
Thank you, Mr. Toohey. First of all, can I say that I would like to offer my condolence to the families of those people who lost their lives in the...
I don't think you can make that judgment.
And in recognition of the community leadership, especially amongst the young people, who took it upon themselves to commemorate the occasion by laying a wreath outside of the post office, and I think to myself that demonstrated to the nation that there was unity within our community and that we were all concerned, and it was just a tragedy of the circumstances that led to those two people losing their lives. In regards to the whole element of community policing, I think if we're not careful, we're going to lose the very point that we're trying to make, and we will demonstrate to the nation who are watching this programme that there are sinister elements within the community who is stirring up hatred and ill feelings, which, to my way of thinking, is unwarranted and uncalled for. When we speak...
On Tuesday afternoon, when the shops on Heathfield Road were done and round on Birchfield Road, there wasn't a sign of any police.
When we're speaking of community policing, I think what we need to be talking about is the accountability of the police to the local community that it serves.
I want to... May I interrupt you there? May I want to bring in someone who hasn't spoken yet. Right. Can I please have some order? I want to bring in a speaker who hasn't spoken yet. I would like to bring in Jeff Rooker, Member of Parliament for Perry Barr, whose constituents have been involved in what's happened in Handsworth. Mr. Rooker, I'm sorry, I want to hear from Mr. Rooker. I would like to hear from Mr. Rooker on the point that Mr. Williams was talking about just now. I know that you have condemned violence as violence and criminality as criminality. On the other hand, you must equally be well aware of the problems of the environmental problems and the economic problems of the area, which clearly have a part to play in understanding it.
Well, yes, I mean, the tragedy is, of course, if we'd have been able to have this meeting, say, last Thursday afternoon, it was still needed last Thursday afternoon, to discuss the real problems of the inner city of Birmingham. But it's been done behind closed doors in the past. People don't... If you shout loud, publicly, how bad and deprived an area is, that can mitigate against bringing in new investment. And unfortunately, a lot is done behind closed doors. And we now know from yesterday, those of us who have put the argument as strongly as possible about the deprivation of the inner city area, we now know that we are called moaning minis. That's clearly what has been decided about those of us who put the case forward. But there was a case and a problem here last week in the area of deprivation, of unemployment, make no bones about it, of unrest and tension. Nobody woke up Monday morning deciding to say, we'll have a riot tonight. Nobody did that. The ingredients and the tension were there, though, for it to be sparked off for any particular incident. It doesn't matter what it might have been, it can easily get out of control. And that's why we need to know, hour by hour, minute by minute, what happened Monday. Exactly what happened, because there is conflicting reports of virtually every incident. We need to know, because it will easily happen again unless we know what mistakes were made on Monday by every section of the community. As Gus Williams says, it wasn't a race riot, and I don't think anybody other than the media has called it a race riot. But the fact of the matter is, there are ingredients of social unrest and tension, but that still is no excuse for arson, murder and looting. No one can defend that.
Can I bring in, please, I want to bring in at this point, I'll try and get back to you. I would like to bring in Councillor Bosworth. I would like to hear from Councillor Bosworth, who is the leader of the Conservative opposition in Birmingham Council. How is it that so much money has been spent in the area, and yet the results clearly are not, to put it mildly, what the money was meant to be doing?
Well, there's a tremendous amount of money gone in. A figure of 20 million has been mentioned, but the figure is, in fact, to the order of 40 million pounds. There are 11,650 people in the Lozelles immediate area concerned here, and it's equal to more than £3,000 per individual of the population over the last 5 years.
I'm so glad the city councillors are concerned for us, but you weren't concerned for us months ago. Part of what sparked off this trouble was when the old Villa Cross cinema caught fire and people said, let it burn. You gave planning permission for it to be turned into an amusement arcade. You, the city councillors, you knew what the feeling was in the area. I have never heard one single person in this area say, yes, they wanted an amusement arcade. But you knew better. You on the planning committee, Frank Chapman, Phil Dawson, Graham Shaler, you all knew better. But 2 weeks before you granted planning permission, you refused planning permission for an amusement arcade in Kings Norton. And shall I tell you why? Because you think we're rubbish and you think Handsworth's rubbish. And we can have all the things that you don't want in your so-called good areas so that your property values stay high.
The Councillor first. Councillor?
On that, the City Council, on matters of planning, are united in policy. There's no question of party discrimination or anything of that kind. It's far better, Chairman, is it not, that buildings shall be put to proper use rather than are left derelict.
I wanted to pick up the point
where
the councillor was accused of having no regard for Handsworth. I want to make it clear that I suspect all the people in this council, all the people in this hall, love Handsworth very dearly. I know I do. But I think the important thing to listen... The important point is...
I'll come to you in a moment.
The important point is that unless there is harmony between the groups in Handsworth, there can be no community policing. And I happen to believe in community policing. It has stood the test of time. And at the end of the day, the style of policing an area gets depends on the attitudes and the behaviour of the people who live in that area. I don't decide it, you decide it.
It goes back to 400 years of slavery where everything was denied from the black man. You might not think, you white people might not think that means anything, but to we who carry the genes of slavery and the sufferation, it means a lot because we never had nothing cultural handed down to us.
Good. I will come back to you in a moment. Yes, sir.
Yeah. All we're doing now, I look around here and I see the people over the last 10 years that I've been working with, all we're doing now is letting everybody have a big laugh at us. All we're doing now is giving everybody a big laugh at us. I go all over the world, all over the country, trying to stick up for Handsworth, and all we're doing is giving them a big laugh again at Handsworth because they say, told you so. We give you money, we do this, we give you publicity, we put you in the goldfish bowl, we do everything for you, and all you're doing is banging each other again, having another go at it, Handsworth all over again. We spent years and years and years, there's people talking about community policing and living in the community. I don't think anyone knows...
Could I just identify for people... Could I just identify that you are David Webb and that you were the initiator of community policing?
Community policing, I do know a little bit about it. What community policing means is everyone in the community trying to police that community. Everybody, because the police can't possibly do it themselves. They can't put 1,000 policemen out on the streets of Handsworth every night of the week and think that they're going to keep the peace, because they're not, because they're going to go away soon, they can't afford to do it. The only people that can keep Handsworth under control are us, the people here. Don't bring Margaret... I don't want to know about Margaret Thatcher. What I want to say is... listen what I'm going to say to you, love. The only people that can control Handsworth are us, the people in it. That's what we tried to show for all the years we were here. All these people that have been working with us. We're the ones, community policing isn't... Don't leave police out of it. It's community. We've got to go out on the streets, all of us, and talk to each other, work together, communicate. What's happening now when we're all shouting at each other and failing to communicate is that we're just going away from here and making ourselves a laughing stock. As from today, we should be doing something and continue doing something for ourselves, us. I work in Handsworth every day. I live in Handsworth. Let's get on with it and get it put together again and not let the other people laugh and take the mick out of us.
And we have to leave that discussion with those words of David Webb, who in his policing days was a pioneer of community policing, a positive epilogue to an energetic, sometimes over-energetic debate. From TVI in Handsworth, Birmingham, good night.